Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Night Shift. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, a student of the game. We'll throw some quick shouts over to Eric Lopez on location there in Oklahoma State, I guess we're going to call it, right? But over there at the site of the Big 12 Conference Tournament for softball. So good on him for handling that. And, of course, he and this man here, Bryson Turner, were aboard previewing that event. So make sure you check that out, blackandgoldbanneret.com. Bing! So, Bryson, what's going on, man? How are you?
I am doing quite all right. Previewing the softball tournament with Eric was great. You got a chance to really see him in his element because he's out there.
Did you get that kid on Christmas feeling from Lopez? I have to ask. Was he that excited?
I mean, you should have seen him. Like he was all ready to go.
I saw a little bit of it in the thumbnail, and I'm not saying that Eric isn't capable of smiling, like he's not Bill Belichick, but he certainly was as entertaining, or looked like he was as entertained as Bill Belichick did during the Tom Brady roast. So he had that going for him. And
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, because this isn't just UCF, like his alma mater. He's covering the entire tournament, and this is a very historic Big 12 tournament. It's the last time that Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in there, both really great softball programs and likely the favorites to take the title this time. And of course, Oklahoma City itself is just a mecca for college softball. And so for Eric to be able to go back there again for the first, but back there again is amazing. And to see his alma mater do it as well. So, and there was already some great softball to be played. If we're recording this on Thursday morning, and so that means the two play-in games for the Big 12 tournament were played last night, and there was some pretty good softball being played last night. If you've been following Eric Lopez on Twitter at Eric Lopez Elo, and I'm sure he'll be talking about the.
No, Bryson, you got to bing that. You can't drop his handle and not bing that. What are you doing?
Well, I thought we only did that for the Banneret stuff.
Yeah, but Elo counts as bing. Like we're not going to bing inside the circle. Well, I mean, we can bing, but you can't drop Eric Lopez's Twitter handle and not throw a bing at that. He's called over 600 games for crime. Come on, man.
Yes, you are right. And speaking of that, I do remember mentioning the 600 games that I had something cooking, and the good news is that the temperature is heating up. So keep an eye out on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. I should be able to put something out in related to that, even though it's a little bit late, but I had a little something I needed to grab for it, and now I have it. So keep an eye out, subscribe to the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel for a bunch of different content, whether it's for preview related, like Eric and I did recently, post-game content like we did with the UCF baseball team. We still have a few more games for that to go this season for that, and any other content we end up putting on there, including the Night Shift podcast, which we're putting out on there as well.
We're just going to give that one elongated bing and move on from there. By the way, we'll be talking plenty of stickball more later with baseball after this. But Bryson, there's been a lot of big stuff here upcoming with Olympic sports. And I'm going to let you flex that proverbial muscle. Women's golf, tennis is getting a lot of movement here. So you got a lot of tournaments. Who are we starting with first, and tell us how they're doing, man?
I think we're going to go ahead and start with men's tennis, because this has been an absolutely historic season for them. First season under head coach Lloyd Bruce Burgess, and they ended up getting into the NCAA tournament in the Tallahassee regional, and they ended up getting their second NCAA tournament win in program history, Kyle Nash, against the Florida Gators. They actually played Florida early on in the year. They gave them their only non-conference loss. They ended up breaking that historic, I believe it was 7-game season opening winning streak. That was the longest opening winning streak in program history. And then Florida ruined it. They ruined it. No. And to give them their only non-conference loss, they get a rematch with them in Tallahassee. They were the number 23 team in the nation at that point, and UCF was able to come out on top 4-3. And they haven't won. They actually haven't even made the tournament since 2021, which was the last time they got an NCAA tournament win. And so now they ended up doing that. Their depth really kind of came in clutch there, which is something I've noticed with this men's tennis team, is that this is the deepest men's tennis team I've ever seen covering here. And it's no wonder why they're starting to get both the men's and women's tennis markets are getting some Kingdom NIL attention, because you want to keep those guys together.
Yeah, I did see that there was a contribution. By the way, we're going to be seeing more from this group in the Bannies, I would imagine, Bryson Turner, as far as their performance and having an iconic season. That would, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some Banny material here. This is what I'm hearing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Leighton Cronje has done a great job first from a senior perspective. I think he's one of the better seniors on campus. He'll certainly have some noise to make. Santiago Giammichelle is a transfer from UT Arlington, so he's a big transfer. Paul Collin has had some really standout performances this year, so I could see an individual out of him as well. And then Lloyd Bruce Burgess in an amazing first season for this, I think, has a lot of noise to put on for the coach of the year. And then this team of the year. I remember during the Swords Awards, which is UCF's own awards for all of its student athletes that it puts on, the entire men's tennis team was given the Perseverance Award. And the big key about that is a team never wins that. That's always an individual award. The whole team won that award, Kyle. So
some trophy maker had a little extra work. That's all.
Yes. So it was a historic season for men's tennis. Unfortunately, it did end up having to come to an end because they ended up having to face the number 10 seed Florida State, who was the host of that regional. And when you, of course, play someone on their own home turf, you look at what happened with UCF in Florida early on in the season. Now you do that against Florida State, and it ended up happening. And what ended up happening, the good news is, though, they actually did manage to get a pretty cool doubles win where Leighton Cronje and Santiago Giammichelle beat the number 13 ranked doubles pair in the country, Korna Shavanik and Daus Karpenschiff. I probably mispronounced that badly, 6-4. So unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get them the doubles point because they lost they did get the doubles point. I'm sorry. That was the only point they got. The only point they got in that match was the doubles point, because Liam Branger and Paul Collin ended up beating Alex Bolton and Jamie Connell 6-2. It's at least Leighton and Liam are both the two seniors on this team were able to go out with getting a doubles win in each of their matches. So at least they have a nice bright spot on that. But after getting the doubles point, which was a really great doubles point to get, they just ended up falling in singles play, though they were interrupted by rain. But the writing was kind of on the wall before the rain even happened. So but they at least were able to get one nick in on Florida State before they ended up having to fall to the hosts. And it stinks that they can't move on to the Sweet 16 and make even more history. But I think what's really cool is that this team is still young.
I was about to say, what's next for this group? Yeah. So
a majority of this team should come back. Again, we're in the age of the transfer portal, so anything can happen. But considering that this team's
the age of a nice fresh NIL contribution, so that helps.
True that. And considering this team stayed together despite the coaching change, then I think that expecting this team to stay together is not at all out of the question. Let's remember, by the way, that we actually didn't see it all out of Francisco Toto Giannis in this postseason that much, because he has been. That's how deep this team is, by the way, because Toto has been a major part of this team over the course of the year. He did play in the doubles play against Florida. There he is, against Florida. He did play in that, but that's the only postseason action in the NCAAs we saw out of him. So the fact that this team is deep enough to where one of their players that we saw a lot of over the course of the season to not play is, I think, telling how deep this is. Plus, they ended up having two freshmen that probably redshirted this year, because I didn't see them play at all. And they're only losing two people with Leighton Cronje and Liam Branger. So I think they're still going to have a very deep roster going in to next season, and with a majority of them being sophomores now going to be juniors next year. That means that I think that next year, and then the year after that too, where this current sophomore class will be seniors, will be the perfect opportune time for UCF to continue making program history. So men's tennis will certainly be a program to watch going forward. I think the only question I would have is these recruits, the majority of this roster is John Roddick recruited. Mm-hmm. So what can Lloyd Bruce Burgess do on the recruiting front? That's going to be, I think, the biggest question going forward. But the good news is,
and say, hey, I took this group and had an iconic season.
Exactly. And that's the way that I'm spinning this, and that's what we have to cover on the Bandies. That's all we really have to go on with this one. And he did a really great job. He and assistant coach Kareem Alof did a great job coaching this team. You think about how long John Roddick was here. He had to build this program for quite a few years in order to get to the 2021 season to get that first NCAA tournament win in program history. Lloyd Bruce Burgess comes in and does that in his first season. So
in short, what we're going to do, if coach asks for it, we're going to have Bryson put together a packet that he can email to those recruits to slam the proverbial accomplishment on the table. We don't have a Bannies Award trophy yet, so we'll have to just promise you that, Coach, if you ask.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. I will definitely be willing to serve for men's tennis in the Bannies Award, and when it comes to Bannies discussion. So
you're trying to dad joke. That one land, but I like the effort. So
I'm not as good as the master. I'm sorry, but yeah. So that will do it.
Let's take it to an arena that I know you're better than me at in golf, and walk us a little bit through the women's golf circuit there.
Yes. So another season coming to an end that we're talking about. Women's golf ended up finishing outside the top 5 in the Bermuda Run Regional, which is in North Carolina. They ended up finishing 21 over as a team in 9th place last time. Unfortunately was one stroke behind South Florida, which is a little bit unfortunate there. It's actually a reverse of what happened last year in the Palm Beach Gardens regional, where they were also in it with USF, and UCF was able to just edge out the Bulls in that one too, despite both of them not making the regional, which is also the same case here. 5th place in the regional ended up being Oregon State at 2 under, just to kind of give you an idea. So UCF was about 23 strokes off of being in the top 5. And then as far as individually, the good news is there was actually some pretty good stuff individually coming out. 2 players ended up finishing in the top 25 overall. True freshman Molly Smith led the way, finishing in a tie for 15th at 2 under for the 3-round tournament. And then Sandwich Susutham finished tied for 21st. Sandwich is her nickname, by the way, Kyle.
I hope so.
Yeah. And so she finished in a tie for 21st at 1 over par. She had a bit of struggles over the last 2 rounds, but I say struggles. I mean, she finished 1 over. I mean, again, for a college golfer finishing around even par, I say it's still a pretty good tournament to have. I mean, she still finished top 25. So those 2 ended up doing very well. Actually, what's interesting, in regionals, the lowest individual not on an advancing team actually gets to go to the NCAA championship as an individual. That person in this regional ended up being Bailey Davis of Tennessee, but she finished at 8 under, just to kind of give you an idea. So Molly Smith was about 6 strokes off of that. So definitely an unfortunate way for women's golf to end this season. I mean, What's really cool about women's golf is they're able to make regionals like with consistency every year, like pretty much every year is every year. It's very rare that Emily Marin doesn't lead an entire UCF team to a regional. On the rare instances in which she doesn't, she's led individuals.
Wasn't Coach Marin a Banny nominee last year as well for female coach?
Yes, she was. And what's funny is that she's made regionals so often that it's become normal for her now. And so it doesn't, which I think really speaks to how good of a coach she's been for this program, with how she's able to do this with consistency. I think really the next kind of step for her, and I would call her the most underappreciated coach on campus, by the way.
I was wondering if that was the case. Being in the shadow previously of Coach Abe and the bear herself, Cindy Ball Malone, I think is a factor there too, not to mention soccer's program and all of that. It's a tough thing to get the notoriety as the golf coach. But hey, listen, you have enough notoriety to have gotten her attention on Twitter. I've seen it. Anyway.
Yeah, it's great, and I really do appreciate whenever that happens. I always love it when anyone engages with my content on Twitter at It's Bryson Turner. Bing!
You're learning. Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you hyped me up like that, because now I'm ready to actually move into talking stickball now. See,
yeah, that's true. I'll just say this to close the door on golf. They have 3 graduating seniors on this squad, but Molly Smith and Sandwich Sutham, considering how good they did in the regional, it's a good thing that they are underclassmen, and so again, barring shenanigans, they should be coming back for next season. If Emily Marin is able to build around them, then I think that a possibility of getting an NCAA championship berth could very well happen over the next couple of years. She has an opportunity to do that. I've always said, I've kind of gotten this theory that you need 2 good golfers in order to make it to the regional on a team, but you need at least 3 good golfers to make a regional, to make it to the championship, like if you go from the regional to the championship. So if Marin can get that 3rd golfer, more is good, more is better. But if you can get that 3rd golfer that can be consistently good alongside Molly Smith and Sandwich Sutham, then I think that we could have one of the better women's golf teams in program history. Which, considering what Emily Marin has been able to do with this program, that'd be saying something.
Well, I'll say this: as much as we've talked about the nickname Sandwich, it's better than having the nickname Sand Wedge on the golf course. Anyways, let's sandwich some more stickball coverage in here too. Baseball has a really big series coming up as it closes out its home side of the docket. Texas coming up, a big program in basketball for baseball for some time here. And UCF will be doing battle with them their last year in the Big 12. First of all, what's been working for UCF baseball this year so far? We've talked about them having improvements hitting and pitching and certain, let's say, adjustments and things that have improved, and that they weren't relying as much on the long ball as last year. What's been going on with them in the season so far?
Yes, they are not relying on the long ball as much, but unfortunately, there has been times where I think this offense has almost become a little bit boomer bust in a way, where they're always like at risk to have a really big inning, but sometimes it doesn't always happen. So like, for example, they're coming off this Houston series where they won two games. The last one got canceled, unfortunately, because of weather. So they had to move on. It's so weird to me, because that means that they still do not have a 3-game conference sweep to their names. They've now had it, denied them in like every single way possible, whether it's losing a game, and now they've had a game canceled. So like, what the heck? But they were coming off of, but before that, they had Cincinnati, where you lost that series, and then they ended up losing the first game to Central Michigan. So while you obviously still have wins that you're supposed to, they picked up a win against North Florida, for instance, in this past midweek, and they had a win against North Florida in the midweek before Central Michigan. So they've won games that they are supposed to win, but at the same time, they've also lost a few games that you kind of think they'd be supposed to win as well. Now, to be fair, they just got Andrew Sundin back. He ended up getting hurt about a month ago, and so after about a month on the bench, he is back, and he certainly very much helps in that batting order. We've also seen a bit of changes in the lineup. AJ Nestler ended up getting some time in the lineup. Braden Calise has kind of moved between second and third base, and it just seems like what's really cool about baseball is that they have a lot of depth in the field. The problem, I think, just comes along of who is the best person to use in which instance, because we've seen a rotating cast of characters now in center field and now at second base and third base as well.
So you're mentioning they're getting healthy again. They have a deep roster, and that the challenge is going to be allocating the resources depending on the opponent. And Texas is a formidable opponent.
Well, it's not just Sundin that's coming back. Wiley Hartley has finally come back as well. He had an oblique injury. It's so funny. One of the weaknesses that we talked about this team having early in the season was the fact they didn't have a Sun starter, and then they found one in Wiley Hartley. And then, like 2 weeks after you found it, he gets injured. Mm-hmm. So Wiley was actually originally slated to come back on Sunday against Houston. That ended up not happening. So instead, he ended up getting the start in the midweek game against North Florida. He looked pretty good. He only gave up 1 hit. Unfortunately, that 1 hit ended up being a home run. But now that he's back in the fold, that certainly helps your starting pitching staff going into a series like Texas, because Sunday has kind of been where UCF has had a little bit of struggle over the course of this season. So Wiley Hartley coming back will certainly help against a program like Texas. We've also, and then sticking to pitching, we've also seen the emergence of some new relief heroes because we've seen Chase Santala kind of have some struggles after a really hot start to the year. Kyle Kramer has also been been pitching a lot, and we've talked about this on the show before, Kyle, where where we were worried about them being overused, and considering they weren't as now. Kyle Kramer is still getting wins, mind you. Like, he actually was credited with the win on Tuesday, where I was at against North Florida, the post game, which you can see on the Black and Gold Banner at YouTube channel. Bing! So while Kyle Kramer still got the win in that matchup, he could still do it, but he's been pitching a lot this year. And so to see some new relievers in the form of Chris Sosnowski, who has had a revelation this year, Dominic Castellano I would now argue has kind of taken the reins from Chase Santala as the most valuable reliever in the bullpen at this point, like just consistently through the whole year. And freshman Tyler Kozera has been getting more time on the mound. So we've said that this team needs some bullpen depth, and I think they're starting to find that. I think now is more, you need to be able to freely flow between each pitcher, each pitcher every game, because it seems like once a pitcher comes in, of course, it gives the offense an opportunity to strike back. So you want to ideally get a pitcher that can just take where their last one left off and then run with it.
So, I mean, for all the talk about long-term that you're making about going from game to game and this like that is, and rightly so in baseball. But again, with the season is growing nigh, tournaments approach, and mostly what's approaching is this Texas team. So for all the challenge and depth and trying to pick the right resource to battle the Longhorns, what would you expect from the Longhorns in this series, and what sort of a lineup would you expect to see come from the Knights on the field there?
Well, Texas is certainly one of the best teams in a very in what has kind of turned into an no holds bar Big 12, because Big 12, like, to draw a comparison to the other stickball sport, while the Big 12 is definitely one of the top conferences in softball and has so many top softball teams that it is kind of insane. With baseball, it's a kind of the other side, where the baseball teams are all good, but at the same time they almost feel like they're kind of cannibalizing each other in a way, to the point where Texas is actually is hovering just outside, I would say, the top 25. I heard, I think one poll is ranking them 25 or something like that. But they are still one of the top teams in the Big 12 overall in terms of record. They're actually tied for second with West Virginia and Oklahoma State at 15-9 overall in conference play. They're 30-19 overall. They're actually just coming off of winning 2 of 3 games against Oklahoma State they Oklahoma State they have Oklahoma State. They're ranked number 14 as I'm seeing on Texas's schedule. So they are and the week before they took on Oklahoma and won that series on the road, who's also been one of the top Big 12 teams. This sort of kind of gives you an idea that, you know, Texas over these past 2 weeks has been playing like the top teams in the Big 12 and winning, Kyle. So this is certainly a team that you don't want to take lightly.
I love the setup, Bryson, but take me to Friday. Like what is it that this team you hope to have out there on the field to do battle against Texas?
Well, for one, you're definitely got to be able to contain their hitters. They basically have 3 of the top 5 conference hitters in the conference, with Jared Thomas, Jalen Flores, and Peyton Powell. They're like top 5 in the conference in hits. You also have Max Baleo, Jalen Flores, and Jared Thomas, both all ranked in the top 5 in home runs. So you have to make sure that you contain them. And then as far as the pitching goes, I mean, Max Grubbs and Ace Whitehead are both top 10 in the conference in ERA. But I think the best way that you're going to be able to get to this team is going to be, you got to keep up with them offensively. You just have to do that. We've seen UCF need their offense in order to get them out of certain situations. Like you look at the Saturday game against Houston. Heck, you look at North Florida, where they needed a grand slam from Anthony Calabro in order to get that go ahead run that they were able to then preserve the rest of the way with the bullpen to win that game. And so I think as long as you're able to hang with this team offensively, then you should be able to have a chance against them. That's what happened with Oklahoma State and Texas. They beat Oklahoma 8-6 and 12-10. So the reason that Texas has been able to get as many wins as they have has been because their offense has just been able to outrun their opponent. UCF is going to have to do that, I think, against Texas in order to in order to have a chance. But then it's going to be, I think it's really going to come down to the pitchers to stop a very high-powered Texas offense. But you don't have to stop them. You just have to hinder them enough to where UCF's offense is able to do the rest, I think.
So yeah, with that in mind, pretty big series upcoming. Check that out. Of course, I'm sure we'll be talking more about how it went and getting closer to the conclusion of not just stickball in general, but baseball in particular here as they approach tournament territory. So
they're still projected, by the way, to be in a regional at this point. I think it's the Tallahassee one, if I'm not mistaken. That's what D1 Baseball's projection currently is. When you look at the RPI, it's actually quite funny. UCF's RPI is actually 32, while Texas's is 51, just to kind of give you an idea on where it is right now. I think
telling me is we're expecting a road trip for you and Nick Porcelli.
Potentially. The best way I can say this is that even though UCF's RPI it does have the advantage on an RPI wise, Texas has all the momentum after their Oklahoma and Oklahoma State series. So it's going to, and Texas is a big program anyway. I mean, they're a big program in a lot of sports, really. So I would say that this is a very good home series finale. They still have one more home game after that. They have a midweek against Bethune-Cookman for Senior Day. But as far as their last home series, there's definitely, I would argue there's not really a lot of teams better to have it against than Texas.
Well, and listen, perhaps Texas will be riding a little too high and feeling overconfident. UCF could take advantage. We'll see that this coming weekend if that happens. But Bryson, you've been, I should say we've been informed that the UCF football schedule has been adjusted of late. And I know that because we're in that football doldrums, and, well, let's just put it this way. We live in the United States of America, where American football is a drug. We are here to give you the dose that you need to keep you going until August. So, Bryson, what are the biggest questions we have regarding schedule changes and what happened, and what questions do you have for me to field there?
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start with just the general, the news of the day, the biggest ads to the schedule that were publicized, which is the addition of a home and home against Pitt and Northwestern. So UCF, of course, faced Pitt several times back in the UC Fast days. And so now they're going to be going back to Pitt on September 12th, 2026. And then the Pitt will come here on September 15th, 2019 in Orlando. And then we'll go out to Northwestern for Ryan Field in 2028, which is going to be, I think, after the renovations are done with Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That could be right. Yeah, I forget the exact date on that.
Yeah, so UCF will be going to Chicago in 2028, and then Northwestern will make a return trip to Orlando in 2031. Kyle, we officially have our first 2030s opponent not named Florida. So what are your thoughts about getting those programs on the schedule?
So first of all, I mean, obviously anything where the Power 5 or 4 at this point is taking you that seriously is a plus. And from first of all, I don't know that Pitt will still be a Power 5 school necessarily by the time UCF goes to play them, he said jokingly, because the ACC is awful. Pitt's always a group that's engaged UCF. It's going to be very interesting. I think that's a high enough caliber opponent. And listen, something Northwestern and Pitt both have in common is they're low enough on the proverbial totem poles to where if UCF does beat them, the conference fans there will just say, oh, well, it was only Pitt or it was only Northwestern, right? But should Northwestern or Pitt beat UCF, those conferences will be banging their chest. Oh, we beat the mighty UCF. Oh, look at this. So it's from that perspective, from that PR perspective, from a conference standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. From the standpoint of those schools, it's a air quotes lower tier opponent. Again, UCF's underestimated in my belief in a lot of different ways. Say what you will about all the different preseason ranking stuff that really means absolutely nothing right now, where I've seen UCF as high as 4th and as low as 8th. I don't know why people are so high on West Virginia. I'm sorry. Anyways, but I'm sure Eric Lopez will have an answer for that on the next Night Shift podcast. Bing! But shouts to the ACC homer / stickball sultan. Anyways, I think those particular ads are good for notoriety's sake. I think it's a showing that UCF is getting taken a little bit more seriously by other power conferences, power schools, as would be expected as members of the Big 12. Now, granted, whether or not, like I said, the ACC is still relevant by the time UCF plays Pitt is in question, or who knows, maybe it'll all fall apart right after that. I don't know. Both are an option. But anyway, what's next?
Yeah, so it'll be the very first time, by the way, that UCF and Northwestern will play each other when they meet up for the first time in 2028. Now, one thing that Athletic Director Terry Mohajir had to say during this press release is he talked about his scheduling strategy, and so we've officially kind of gotten official word from him on expectations for this, which is in non-conference is to play 1 P4, 1 G5, and 1 FCS program for that going forward. Now, considering Danny, I consider this almost like how different would you say now that we've kind of see that when you look at Danny White versus Terry Mohajir, what kind of differences or similar differences do you see?
This is a great question, Bryson, too, because the biggest critique of Danny White for all the flowers he's been given, me included, and rightly so, there are some overly critical individuals out there, some stat boys, if you will, that can't stop griping about the way that Danny White did the schedule. And in the defense of those Danny White critics, you want to know who are among those Danny White critics? Danny White. He had said on a podium while he was still here that he wished he had handled scheduling a little bit better, that he was more aggressive back when he was there while UCF was still struggling, right? So Terry Mohajir took that mistake as acknowledged and cured it by having the schedule well out in advance with some of the other teams. But and I think the point's been made. I think they're short a 1A scheduling spot, by one. But let's think back to when a Hurricane game was canceled and we got an opponent in here quickly in the form of Austin Peay. Those are the schools that a school that UCF has to do is cut a check to get into the building. don't expect necessarily great football, but that's the kind of tune-up game that Gus likes to use anyway. And there's even an advantage to kind of sitting back and seeing if somebody's a hotter name that might, draw a little bit more hype as much as one can anyway, right? So it's clearly a place where, for all the Mohajer criticism, and some of it warranted, some of it not, that's been out there, this is clearly one that Mohajer got right that Danny White didn't. And I think even Danny White would tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of the schedule, like you mentioned, scheduling out in advance, we now essentially, even though we don't have dates yet, we pretty much have the entire UCF football schedule now from now until 2027.
We have the opponents, right?
Right, the opponents essentially set in stone at this point. So going over that, and I'll kind of delineate them by their FBS, like their football tier system. So our FCS opponent in 2025 is going to be North Carolina A&T. Our G5 is going to be Jacksonville State, Conference USA. And then our P5 is going to be North Carolina. All home games, by the way. So
I mean, you couldn't travel to Jacksonville State? I'm joking.
Yeah. So because hey, look, considering that you only have 4 Big 12 home games that year, I think that certainly helps offset that off year when it comes to that.
Well, remember, something that this team's always constantly struggled with, I feel like, in the Gus Malzahn era, is having so many games in a row at home and then not traveling until late. And of course, the Boise State year being the anomaly of the 3, where they actually, traveled for one of those games. And maybe it went well in that they got the dub. It didn't go well in that John Rice Plumlee got the injury, but yeah, I can see the up and down of that. But go ahead, Bryson.
So then in 2026, we have our FCS opponent that year will be Bethune-Cookman, so local matchup there. Our G5 matchup will be against UMass, who will be a MAC team at that point. And so does this count as like a MAC, sort of like that Kent State game that UCF had recently?
I guess I don't know. In the same way that Cincinnati is the first Big 12 win, right? I don't know that Eric Lopez, for example, would count that. But go ahead.
So that'll be a match. So that'll be a matchup against a MAC UMass, and then the Power 5 game that year will be, of course, the aforementioned road game against Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that. Then in 2027. We have our FCS matchup against UT Martin. Our G5 matchup will be against the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana.
Hey!
And then both of these will be at home. And then they'll hit the road again for their Power 5 matchup in their return trip to North Carolina after North Carolina comes here in 2025.
Yeah, well, and again, goodness knows if that will actually be a Power 5 by then or not. That's a whole lot. Well, Power 4, excuse me, a Power 4 by then or not. Who knows? Maybe it'll be an extended conference game by then. It'll get grandfathered in. Who knows? Who knows if any of that's going to go? That's so. I mean, because some compelling things that, like, listen, I can say what I want about North Carolina quarterbacks being overrated from Sam Howell all the way to Drake May. # that's right. I said it. That's still a key matchup, and keeping that relationship healthy, especially with a fellow. Well, actually, North Carolina's more established, air quotes, dual threat school. They're a basketball school first, obviously, just really good at football. I think that's something that UCF is healthy to keep a relationship with too, because if and when they finally do improve in their basketball acumen, if they start making a tournament here or there, it'd be healthy to have the conversations with those teams so we can get them in the building and see them on UCF's campus to get the fan base riled up. So after 2027, we don't have a Big 12 conference opponents, but we do know all of the conference opponents for 2028. So our FCS one will be against Maine. Maine will be coming to town. FAU will be coming in. Man, it's been a hot minute since we played FAU, hasn't it? It will be a hot minute when 2028 comes around, when FAU comes to the Bounce House. And then this will be the first matchup at Northwestern. I'm kind of noticing now that our Power 5 matchups our non-conference matchups are all going to be on the road
from 2026 to 2028.
Yeah, no, the way that this group, the way that Terry Mohajir in the front office has shored up the scheduling like this, like I said, is a pure learning from the previous mistakes that even Danny White himself acknowledged.
Yeah, and then 2029. So we have two non-conference opponents listed for that one, but they are the G5 and the P4 one. So all they need is just an FCS opponent, which they can wait on a little bit for that. So both James Madison and Pitt will be coming to the Bounce House in 2029. I'll tell you what, just from a non-conference perspective, I feel like of the non-conference schedules we've seen so far, even not knowing who the FCS team is going to be, I feel like 2029 looks pretty good from that perspective. If James Madison can kind of maintain that kind of high G5 status, it's been able to kind of get for itself.
That's a lot to ask from a program for 5 years from now. I mean, to be clear about that, but yeah, I mean, listen, that's actually a smarter move by James Madison to get UCF on the schedule to kind of keep themselves nationally relevant, to have a program like UCF bring them in. And see, this is actually an example of UCF turning that table where in the past UCF was the James Madison, right? And I think this is UCF showing that lack of fear in scheduling groups like that. So
isn't James Madison the only other school to go from D3 to from D3 to D1 in football, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, I can't answer that, but it wouldn't be surprised me if there were. I'll put it that way. Yes, the whole skip a level thing is unique at the very least.
Yeah. Here it is. James Madison moved. Yeah, they started they moved from D3 to D1 AA in 1980. So while UCF has kind of made that is kind of claim to fame is going from D3 to the P4. James Madison, to be fair, has been making kind of a similar journey where they went all the way from D3 and is now in D1 in the G5. So James Madison's kind of where UCF was kind of was for a lot of the 2000s, the new millennium since then. And so I like to think that matchup is a little bit of a kinship in a way where
it's about to say, shouts to UCF for walking it like they were talking it back in the Danny White era and pounding the chains. Dare play us! I dare you! I double dare you, mother beep! Play us! Well, UCF is giving James Madison that shot. You have to respect it, Bryson Turner.
Yeah, I know. The storylines for that game are going to be very, very fun. I mean, we're 5 years on from it, and I can already kind of have them formulating in my head. Anyway, 2030s. Anyway, the 2030s. Of course, you have the Florida games in the home one in 2030. And then the one in the swamp in 2033. Well, and then you have Northwestern coming to town in 2031.
So I'll say this, let's not worry too much about the 2030 games because there's still plenty of time for people to back out of that. And listen, credit to Northwestern for setting it up in a scenario where UCF fans think they have them locked up. There's still time for them to run off, especially if there's any realignment silliness that happens or any sort of NCAA craziness, or if the tectonic plates of college continue to be volatile, those may just as easily go away. So with that being said, it is great news to hear that UCF's playing them on the road, at home, or otherwise, because again, it shows a level of respect that they weren't getting before. Before, UCF was just that G5 team that was really good, so don't put them on the schedule because they're not peers. Now that they are in the power conferences, it's less punitive to lose to them now, fair or not. So they're going to get these better schedulings, and I'll play the role of Eric Lopez, and that's good for TV. Yeah. So, But anyways, that's plenty on that. Go ahead, Bryce. Let's put a bow on this.
Speaking of the G5, what this does do, by the way, because remember, 2029, even though there is only 2 non-conference opponents for that one, that last one is going to be an FCS. If Terry Mohajir continues with the philosophy he's kind of dictated, which
he doesn't have to. He may be like, you know what, let's play Boise State because I'm Terry Mohajir, Jamma, and let's say they pull out that schedule. It's possible. I don't think it's happening, but it's possible.
Very true. But say he does, this essentially puts to bed now that officially we kind of have these new conference these new conference teams. It officially puts to bed on the potential. I think again, barring silliness, to the continuation of the war on I-4 will not happen until probably the 2030s, if at all.
Yeah, okay. So
I think this officially puts the bet on that.
Fair. I'm still saying this, okay? All you people out there that are all, oh, 194, listen, the players don't even care anymore. All right? Let's be clear. The last person to make a big play like that, the Holy Holler himself, has graduated. He's gone. He's a Dallas Cowboy. No one cares.
Yeah, but
hold on. That being said, and I'll reiterate this, the best way to preserve the rivalry is through basketball and stickball. Period.
That is completely and totally fair. But let's think about this. Do you think USF cared about us at all when the rivalry went on ice the first time?
Well, if I'll put it this way, if Quentin Flowers' actions in the in the Black Friday game war on I-4 are any indicator, the answer is yes, Bryson Turner.
Fair enough. All right. Fair enough. Like, look, the people like college football, I think, always thrives on these kinds of local rivalries. I mean, Auburn and Alabama, good old fashioned, hey, Georgia Tech, Florida Georgia game, like these rival Florida State, these schools that are near each other geographically always make for great rivalries, even if they're one-sided a lot of the time. You look at Georgia Tech,
Yeah, that's not a rivalry anymore. No, I hear you. But see, here's the difference. At least Georgia Tech and Georgia are both considered in the same league being power schools. Now, whether Georgia Tech belongs there, separate conversation. I'm not entertaining that here. Hashtag ACC problems. But the fact that USF was as active in trying to stymie UCF's movements as they were, and then the fan base is arguing about that. Listen, if you did that to another school and openly supplanted them, you're going to have to address it regularly because it's scandalous. People know you did it, and you could try and deny it and you'll look stupid, or you'd be like, yeah, because we're better than you, and then you have to prove it on the field, which USF failed to do long term. Right.
Very true.
So that's the piece that kept it relevant. And I hear what you're saying. USF was number 2 for a week, and that's still their biggest accomplishment. Like, we care.
Mm-hmm.
But.
And I still remember this when UCF first joined the Big 12, and we talked about the war on I-4 and all that type of stuff. During this time when with the rivalry being on ice again, I remember saying how UCF needs, like how UCF was able to catch up with USF in terms of program status after the rivalry came back, that came back in 2010s. I feel like that this on kind of, this break in the rivalry now in the 2020s, I think it can allow time for USF to essentially, like I remember saying these two words specifically, get good. UCF was able to do it the first time. Now this time around, it's USF's turn to do that, and the only way I could really see the rivalry coming back at all ever sooner is if the Big 12 decides to expand again, and USF is actually makes itself an attractive addition. I think that's the only way I could really see that happening again. But I mean, hey, that could make for a good. Make UCF a good travel partner. We've been always talking about how the travel concerns with the Big 12 at this point, and so
KU's still there, UNF is still there, Florida, FSU, Miami are all there. People are clamoring for the Miami UCF pairing. There's just too many other better options than USF. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's very true. That's the spoils of being in a college football college football powerhouse that is Florida.
Just a football state, period, Bryson. There are 3 NFL teams in this state.
You know what's funny is that I'm actually kind of surprised that we don't have a non-conference game against a Florida school until 2028. But then again, I mean, maybe
things are done. We're still dealing in a world with some of those scheduling that's pre-Gus Perilla. So,
True. So that's true. So there probably is still going to take some time. But I mean, maybe that's the next challenge.
Well, that's the evidence that of the movement going and taking this full circle to put a bow on it. Northwestern and Pitt being added is kind of that full circle piece. Now, if and when UCF can get a Michigan like they've had in the past, or a South Carolina or something like that, that's when you know that they've truly arrived in fledgling blue blood status, right?
Very true, very true. And that's the challenge going forward. And at least now Terry Mohajir is kind of set the path for, is really setting the path forward. He's showing us the way, to kind of do a little Dune reference there.
Well, this is the May, Bryson.
Very true. Very true. So yeah, I'm excited to see what UCF's able to do over the course of these next few years. Glad we actually get some idea of it, which is certainly an upside to not. But let's not forget, of course, they still have this season to take care of, where of course they have that first non-conference game against Florida in the Swamp on October 5th. That flag that we planted on the calendar is just getting closer and closer.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to be traveling to it and representing the black and gold banneret at it. But Bryson, I think we've given the people all. Thank you, sir. I think we've given the people all we can on that. Of course, for Bryson Turner at It's Bryson Turner. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, student of the game at the SOTG on Instagram, on Twitter, because I don't call it X. I got a family. I don't want people knowing that I'm on X. That's just wrong. Anyways, honor, joy, and privilege. Thanks for joining this edition of The Night Shift. Check out blackandgoldbanneret.com. Bing! And the Black and Gold Banner YouTube channel as well. If you haven't seen the softball tournament preview yet with Bryson Turner and Eric Lopez. An honor, joy, and privilege. But until next time, everybody, class dismissed. Go Knights, charge y'all.